Welcome to our Thursday Deep Treks devotion. And today we are looking in Revelations chapter 4. We've talked about the 24 elders. We've talked about who's sitting on the throne. We've talked about the things around us. Um, but it says something else here, and I want us to go down to verse 6 is where I want us to begin. It says, "Also before the throne there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. And in the center of the throne were four living creatures. They were covered with eyes in front and in back. These first of the living creatures was like a lion, the second was like an ox, the third was the face of a man, the fourth was like a flying eagle. Each of the four living creatures had 6 wings, was covered with eyes all around, even under his wings. Day and night they never stopped saying, 'Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who is, who was, and is to come.'" Now, these beings, these four beings that are in the middle of the throne room, are before God at all times. And uh, we don't just see it here, but we see it back in the book of Ezekiel. Back in the book of Ezekiel, in Ezekiel's vision, and I'm quickly turning back there, we see down in verse 5 to 10 of Ezekiel this description. I'll begin at verse 4 of Ezekiel chapter 1. It says, "I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning surrounded by a brilliant light. And the center of the fire looked like a glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like four living creatures. In appearance, their form was like that of a man, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight as their feet. They were those of the calf, and they gleamed with burnished bronze. Under their wings, on their 4 sides, they had the hands of a man. All 4 of them were the faces and the wings, and their wings touched one another. Each went straight ahead, and as they did not turn, they did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of them had 4 faces: the face of a man on the right side, the face of a lion on the left, the face of an ox, and each had the face of an eagle. Such were the faces that of their wings. Their wings were spread out upward, each of the 2 wings touching the wings of the creatures. Each one went straight ahead. Wherever the Spirit would go, they would go without turning as they went. The appearance of the living creatures was like burning coals on fire, like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures. It was bright and lightning flashed, and the creatures sped back and forth like flashes of lightning. And as I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its 4 faces and its appearance, and a splendid like crystal light in all the 4 creatures alike. Each appeared as a wheel, and they moved, and wherever they would go, the face of the 4 directions the creatures faced. The wheels did not turn as the creature went. Their rims were high and awesome. And basically, I want to stop there. But basically, if you go through and read the whole description, he's describing the throne, because on the throne he says he sees one like a son of man. In other words, he sees a vision of Christ. He sees the eternal throne, and the throne sits on top, and these beings are underneath, moving the throne around the world. There's a verse in the Psalms that says that, and by the way, these beings are called cherubim. So whenever you see a description, I want to be clear here. Whenever you see somebody saying, "Oh, cherubim are those little, baby-like angels with angel wings, a little bit like Cupid," cherubim are described clearly in the Bible with wings. They are creatures that have faces of people, animals, and other things. They have eyes all around their wings so that they can see everything, everywhere, all the time. That's the idea. Part of the Spirit of God that goes out and sees everywhere. We also see mention of the cherubim in the book of Genesis. At the end of Genesis 3, after humanity is cast out of the Garden of Eden, God says we don't want humans to come back in and have access to the tree of life. We don't want them to live forever. So he places a cherubim and a waving sword. Now, some people put them together, but it does say clearly they're separate. A flaming sword, and the cherubim are placed there to make sure humanity can't get back to the tree of life until the time when we get back to eternity, until we've been redeemed through Christ. Now, why is this all important? Well, it's important because I see some things happening in Revelation 4 that sometimes people miss because they get so tied up again in the words and the descriptions. Yes, these are awesome descriptions, and we can get into how the face of a man represents humans, the face of oxen represents work, the face of the lion represents the royalty or justice and judgment. The face of an eagle represents a spiritual, kind of flight. There's all these things that can be described by these different faces. Yes, they have representation. In fact, we can go into other Middle Eastern places. And if you see, some of you probably know and will know the description I'm talking about, but over in ancient Babylon and in ancient Mesopotamia, you see these creatures where it has that face of a human on top, but it's got the long, beard that they used to have in Mesopotamia, but it's standing on the body of a lion and it has wings. Some people say this is kind of like a human description that they were trying to do in the time era of a cherubim. It's probably close to that, but not exactly, because in the description in Ezekiel, he says there's four faces on all sides. In other words, one's looking every direction. The eyes are all around looking in every direction. And I think that's important for us for two reasons. Number one, it reminds us that the Spirit of God is always watching and looking around the world. And so he's watching what you're doing, what I'm doing. He does see what's going on in the world. He sees the problems that are going on in the world, and he's already working to address those things. And he sees eternity as he's looking forward. Yesterday we talked about the fact that he's looking forward to the right point in time to come back. He's watching for that right time. But he's also watching you and I, and he's also watching the evil one, and he knows what's going on, and he knows what the evil one's going to do first. That's one thing we can get from this. But more importantly, as a second thing, it's like we see these eyes and we see what's happening in heaven. These four cherubim, there may be more than four cherubim, because we know some were placed in the garden, some are placed here, and that was also the representation that was put onto the Ark of the Covenant, the throne of God. So when we see these four particularly, they are always in front of God. Their eyes looking all around. But I love what's here because it tells us something about what we can learn about heaven and about the throne room of God, or about the temple of God. It says, day and night they never stopped saying, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was, who is, and is to come. This part of the passage is what I want us to say is the heart of everything. And we're going to get more into this tomorrow. But really, think about this. They have eyes all around them, and they are continually seeing God in heaven. And it's like their eyes are continually watching God from all these different angles, and they see God every moment from a different angle because of all these eyes. And what is their response to seeing God at a new angle constantly? Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was, who is, and who is to come. When we get into the presence of God, we're going to fall down just like these 24 elders, because we are going to get to see God in that glorious form that these beings, day and night, constantly are there seeing. And their eyes, you can imagine hundreds of eyes all over the place around them, are seeing something new in God. I want to ask you, when's the last time you just took some time to think about the things of God? What he's done for you, how he's worked in this world, what creation gives us, the impact on our lives, and just sat and thought about his holiness and his greatness. I want you to do that today. I want you to take some time and just think about how awesome of a God we serve. I hope God blesses you today, and I hope you get some time to think about all of his greatness. Blessings on the journey.
That's today's Devo on Deep Treks. No matter how deep the questions or dark the doubts, there's always a path forward. Reach out at deeptreks.com with prayer needs or topics you'd like us to explore. Keep trekking. Renewal is never far away. Be blessed on the journey and bless others along the way.